21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I never intended to go into business at all. We were kind of wandering hippie carpenters, passionate about what we did. We loved every minute of it, but it wasn't business. And I had a mentor about 20 years older than me who loved our work, and he followed our work, and he used to come and look at these houses that we would build. And one time he said, "The work is beautiful. Are you making any money?" And I kind of chuckled and I said, it feels like we're losing money on every project we do. And he said, "Abrams, you've got a unique idea, subsidized housing for the rich." That was like a little dagger to my heart, and I suddenly wanted to learn about business. And that was the thing that launched my business career, that made me want to learn how to use business to do good in the world. The company grew a little bit. We were not particularly interested in growth. We were interested in doing great craft and delivering wonderful results. But it was quite familial, a group of friends, and about 10 or 12 years in, one or two old friends who had been with me from the very beginning came to me and they said, "We've been talking to each other and we don't want to take the usual route and start our own company. We want to spend our careers here. But we need more of a stake." And I thought about this, and I could have made them partners, but I thought, well, if we do our job well, this might happen over and over again. Maybe we can imagine a structure that will welcome people in over time as owners. And we did not have to imagine, because we luckily stumbled on the worker co-op. And at that time, there were less than a dozen in the US. They were largely unknown. But when I learned about it, it totally appealed to me. And we found somebody who knew, an attorney who knew how to do these conversions. And so in 1987, my company became owned by others and me. And I stayed there for another 35 years as the CEO. But as we took in more and more and more owners, and it became highly democratic, highly collaborative. And, I often say that it was a hinge point in our history, because we never could have done what we did, I don't think, without the commitment that comes with ownership. So that was a tremendously important part of the success of South Mountain. And South Mountain Company is a 40-person architecture, building, and solar company. Integrated services, doing that whole piece together. We always felt like, let's only grow with intention. Let's not grow in response to demand. Let's do the work that we really care about, which was well-crafted, beautifully designed, high performance, and increasingly low carbon, low energy. That was our central focus. And, it was such an amazing group of people to work with.
I ain't tired of rock and rollin'. I ain't tired of rock and rollin'. I'll be dancing till the morning. That old music gets me going. Say, hey, yeah, I'm gonna rock it tonight.
As I aged, we started to think about the future. And the first thing we did is we created an avalanche scenario. What happens tomorrow if I'm a skier from way back? So what happens tomorrow if I'm buried by an avalanche today? And that was our first stab at thinking about where does this company go from here? Because we all knew that we wanted it to go on. We wanted it to endure. We wanted its purpose to be continued. And so around then, I took a sabbatical for 6 months. And I had two purposes. I wanted to see how distributed management would work in my absence. And I had a book I wanted to write. The end of 6 months, I came back. The book was not finished. The experiment had been a real failure. Morale had tanked. And so we sat for 6 months and we thought, what did we do wrong and how can we do it right? And I went away for another 6 months, finished the book, came back, and this new distributed management had gotten traction. People were excited, people were engaged, and that system that started in maybe 2006 lasted all the way to my retirement in 2022. So as I was saying, we started thinking about succession and planning, and it was clear that we had an amazing group of people. We had plenty of internal leaders, but we had to build those capacities so that they could really take on the company. We had a great leadership team, and we worked for 3 years to build the capacities we needed. And about 6 months before my retirement date, we all looked around the room at each other and we said, my God, we're done here. We've got 6 months to just polish this mirror, and we're ready. We're ready. And it's thrilling to watch today that now it's 2.5 years later, and they are just taking the company to new places, and they're thriving. So that's a thrill for me, and I've moved on to other work, a new book that'll be coming out in just a few days. One of the things that I learned from that whole experience is that, and the reason, so this new book is called From Founder to Future, a business roadmap to impact, longevity, and employee ownership. Right now, there are 3 million small businesses in the US with employees, with founders over 55. Something is going to happen to each of these. There's going to be a great transfer of wealth in the next 15 years. And some of these companies will be passed down within families, less and less. Some will unceremoniously close the doors, but others will be appetizing to private equity and to strategic buyers, and they may take these businesses and dismantle, move them out of communities, sell them for parts. There's no telling what happens at that point, and the character of the business and the heart and soul of the business may disappear. So there are so many founders that want to keep their mission alive, but they don't know about their attorneys, their accountants, their financial planners, their bankers. They don't know about the employee ownership options available to them. So that's what this book is for, to educate small business owners and the employees within those companies that have built those companies and whose future depends on them, to explore and to examine several different employee ownership options. One of the things I discovered as I worked through my career at South Mountain and as I helped other people with these transitions is that most small businesses have no succession plan. And most small businesses don't think about it until the founder's ready to retire, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? Well, what I find is that it makes a lot of sense to disentangle the ownership progression from the leadership change. Moving into second generation leadership, that's complex. Ownership, it's transactional. So figure out your ownership model and do it mid-career and leave a long runway to develop new leadership and move on to the second generation leadership. So I think that's a key element of having smooth and seamless and successful transitions and keeping businesses alive.
Can't get you up on my brain. I think I'm going insane. You keep on burning me hot with your fire, hot with your fire. Hey, now I just can't get away. You got me caught in your net.
As I started to think about this book, I thought, what are the most important elements of trying to be a business that goes on for generations, that serves people in exemplary ways, and that truly honors a triple bottom line: profit, people, planet, all together. Each as important as the next. And it seemed to me that what characterizes companies that succeed at that is 5 different transitions. The first is ownership, from proprietary ownership to widely shared and accessible to all. The next is leadership, from original founder to next generation. Mission, from unprotected to permanent preservation of purpose. Management and governance, from top-down control to participatory and democratic. And impact, from doing business as usual to becoming a certified B Corp force for good. And very few businesses achieve all these transitions fully, but if you hold them as your intended goalposts, even if it takes decades or generations to get all the way down the field, this is what takes us to a business that has the kind of impact that some of us wish to have. So I realized that this is what we've been doing for the last 50 years in our business. I mean, we didn't know this. We put all the ingredients into the soup, we stirred it, but we didn't actually learn what the recipe was until decades later. So now that's what this book is. It's saying, here's the recipe that you can follow and make it your own. There are 3 major kinds of employee ownership. They're very different from one another, and within each, there are very different manifestations. So this is not formulaic. It's not about here's the way you do it. It's about figuring out what works for you. And for some, it's the ESOP, the Employee Stock Ownership Plan, which is the most common in the US. And for some, it's the worker co-op, which has more democracy built into the structure, and which actually is the most common employee owned structure in the world. Worldwide, there are huge concentrations of worker co-ops in northern Italy, in Spain, in the Basque region of Spain, in Japan, in Quebec. So they're spread out all over, but in the US, maybe 1,000, but growing tremendously. The interest is growing tremendously. And then there's kind of a new shiny object, which is the employee ownership transition, which has been tremendously successful and widespread in Great Britain for over 100 years, but has recently come to the US and is gaining some traction here. So there are wonderful options, and the book examines what those options are and how they're different from one another, and also tells some stories about exemplary expressions of each. To go back to South Mountain for a bit, it was our, we live in a culture that, Wall Street says grow or die, and growth is worshipped, that you must grow, and that success is based on constant growth. Whereas I have always felt that growth is something that is not necessary, is only necessary if there's something that you particularly want to do that depends on that growth. Because there are several kinds of growth. One growth is the one that we know, which is expand, expand, expand. Another kind is internal growth. Just get better at what we do. Do it in new and different ways. So that was kind of the South Mountain model. It was not our aspiration to become a big company. It was our aspiration to become a great company. And I mean, you know, the author Bo Burlingham wrote a book called Small Giants that really took hold for a while, and that was about companies that were not dedicated to growth. They were dedicated to excellence and still are. There were very few in the US and very few employee-owned companies at all. There was no infrastructure. And today, as I researched this book, I found this incredible ecosystem of developers, so now there's accessible information, and there are employee ownership centers in I think in about 35 states, all of that last 10 years. And so now people have this places to go, and I see a future that this kind of wealth sharing with the people that do the work. I mean, workers in this country, at least, have been left behind. They've been left behind by Democrats. They've been left behind by Republicans. In the last 50 years, in the US, from the 30s to the 70s, unions were able to bring increasingly higher wages and benefits to working people. And when that era ended in the 70s, wealth inequality was way down. And at that time, the average CEO made roughly 20 times the average working person. That has grown to 250 or 300 to 1. If working people's wages had grown the way CEOs' wages have grown, compensation, the minimum wage right now would be over $100 an hour. Nothing of the sort has happened. So this is an opportunity for founders of businesses to start to share the wealth, get a good return on their business, and share with, rather than it going to private equity and then ending up with fat wallets and broken hearts, to the employees that have helped them build it. I think there's potential to help bring down the massive wealth inequality that we're experiencing today with this method in the future.
Short down street, no time to waste. So can't feel, but it tastes the same, and it feels the same, and it tastes the same, and it feels the same, and it over yet.
So to find out more, from founder to future, a business roadmap to impact, equity, and employee ownership. It's published by Barrett Kohler, and you will find it anywhere that books are sold. Look for that book or go to my website, which is abramsangel.com. It's Abrams, A-B-R-A-M-S, Angel, A-N-G-E-L-L.com, and you will find us. And if I can help you in any way, please get in touch.
You're mine, only mine.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.